The SU-152 went from drawing board to battlefield in just 25 days. It wasn't built with precision. It was built in a panic, meant to break bunkers, not tanks, but it ended up tearing through the heaviest German armor in the war. This is the dark truth behind the Soviet beast they called the Beast Slayer. By late 1942, the Soviet army was under pressure. The Germans had new tanks, including the Tiger and the Panther, and soon, the Ferdinand. These were big, deadly machines, and the Soviets were not ready for them. Worse, much of the fighting had moved into cities, tight streets, collapsed buildings, and deep winter snow. Old Soviet artillery couldn't keep up. Their guns were either towed by horses or slow tractors, and in the chaos of retreat, these guns were often left behind. Something had to change. The Soviets needed a mobile weapon, one strong enough to smash bunkers, one fast enough to roll with troops in tight city battles, one powerful enough to kill any tank it saw. So they got to work. And fast. Engineers grabbed the KV-1S tank chassis, an older Soviet tank base, and slapped a massive 152mm howitzer onto it. The same kind of gun used to destroy buildings. They didn't waste time designing something fancy. They just bolted what they had together. The result? A 45-ton beast with a huge gun sticking out the front. They called it Object 236 at first. Then it became the SU-152. Testing was rushed, training was basic, but it worked. So they said, let's build more. Within 10 months, they had already made 700 of them. This was no gentle weapon. It fired shells that weighed over 100 pounds. The high explosive charge alone could take out an entire house or a German tank. But it had downsides, big ones. The SU-152 wasn't a smooth ride. Its huge gun fired slowly, only about 2 rounds per minute. That's because the shells were heavy and had to be loaded in 2 parts. The loader had to crouch, twist, and wrestle every round into place in a tight, noisy metal box. Inside were 5 crew members, crammed together with fuel tanks and ammunition stored right next to them. One fuel tank sat beside the driver. And here's the worst part. If the gun wasn't turned to the left, the driver couldn't even get out. So, if the vehicle caught fire, good luck escaping. Even so, the gun made up for the risk. One hit from its massive shell could tear a tank apart. It didn't matter if the shell pierced the armor. The explosion alone could send deadly metal shards flying inside, killing the crew instantly. And when this thing finally hit the battlefield, it made a bloody first impression. July 1943, the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history. Germany rolled in with their heaviest armor, including the Ferdinand tank destroyer, which had armor up to 200mm thick. They thought it was unstoppable. But then came the SU-152, a small Soviet unit, hid in an ambush. When the German vehicles came within 800 meters, they opened fire. One Ferdinand was hit and exploded in flames. Another was hit and flipped over, not by being pierced, but by the shockwave of the blast. The SU-152 didn't need to penetrate the armor. The blast itself did the killing. Crews inside were ripped apart by shock and shrapnel. Even if the tank survived, the men inside usually didn't. It was chaos. Death came fast and loud. From that moment on, the SU-152 earned a terrifying nickname, Zveroboy. In Russian, it means Beast Slayer. And it was just getting started. But here's the twist. It was never even designed to kill tanks in the first place. And when German weapons started getting stronger, the SU-152's weaknesses began to show. After Kursk, the SU-152 had a reputation. Soldiers feared it, generals praised it, but that nickname, Beast Slayer, hid a brutal truth. This machine was never meant to fight tanks. It was made to destroy bunkers and buildings, and it did that well. But when it was forced into duels with enemy armor, it started showing cracks. For one, the SU-152's gun wasn't accurate at long distances. Its shells followed a high arc, like a rainbow, great for leveling buildings, bad for hitting moving tanks a mile away. And it was slow, very slow, from aiming the gun to reloading to firing. It lagged. If it missed its first shot, it might not get a second. Meanwhile, the Germans were upgrading. Their 88mm guns, especially the ones on newer tank destroyers, were deadly accurate, faster, and packed a punch that could rip through even the SU-152's sloped armor from across the battlefield. That meant the Beast Slayer could be hunted too. When things got bad, Soviet tactics changed. Instead of sending the SU-152 straight into open battles, they pulled it back a bit. It would stay behind tanks and infantry, firing from a distance to take out strong points and bunkers. In ruined cities, where the enemy hid in buildings, the SU-152 was a wrecking ball. If soldiers were pinned down by machine guns inside a house, the SU didn't wait. It just blew the building to dust, along with everyone in it. These weren't clean kills. They were violent, crushing, and total. Some buildings fell with one shot, but up close, the SU was vulnerable. Early versions had no machine guns for protection. If enemy troops snuck up, all the SU crew had were small submachine guns or grenades to defend themselves. Eventually, they added a big DSHK heavy machine gun on the roof. It could take down enemy infantry and even low-flying planes. But the fact that this upgrade came later tells you how rushed the original design really was. The SU-152 was a short-term answer, a stopgap, and the Soviets knew it. By 1944, it was already showing its age. Its armor wasn't enough. Its chassis, borrowed from the older KV-1S tank, was outdated and hard to maintain. So they took the same deadly gun and placed it on something better, the new IS tank platform. The result was the ISU-152. It had thicker armor, up to 100 millimeters on the front, and better mobility. It could finally survive longer in battle and fight side by side with tanks. The Soviets also changed how they used these machines. In cities, they were now followed by infantry with submachine guns, and sometimes even flamethrowers. That was their defense against sneaky soldiers with anti-tank weapons hiding in buildings. With that teamwork, they stormed German-held cities. Buildings didn't stand a chance. Neither did bunkers. Neither did morale. By 1945, World War II was grinding to its end. Cities were in ruins. Millions were dead, and the SU-152 had earned its place in the Soviet war machine. But it was never meant to last. After the war, the world changed. New ideas in tank design were rising. Nations didn't want big, slow boxes with giant guns anymore. They wanted one machine that could do it all, a main battle tank. The SU-152 didn't fit that future. Its armor was too weak, its gun too slow, and its job, destroying bunkers and heavy tanks, was becoming less useful in a world where wars were faster, more mobile, and more high-tech. Still, its bigger brother, the ISU-152, stuck around for a while. Nearly 4,000 of them were built. Some stayed in the Soviet military into the 1950s. Others were sent to Allied countries, but slowly they were replaced, forgotten, and finally retired. The age of the assault gun was over. Today, when people look back at the SU-152, they often focus on the cool stats. A giant gun, a powerful blast, a nickname like Beast Slayer. But that's just part of the story. The real truth? The SU-152 was born from fear. It was built in desperation, and it was used in some of the darkest battles of the war, not just against tanks, but against human beings, buildings, and cities. It didn't win with precision. It won with raw power, with explosions that shook the ground, with destruction that didn't always care what or who was in the way. Inside, the crew risked death with every shot, from enemy fire, from their own ammo, from the very design of the tank itself. Yet they kept going, because that's what the war asked of them. The SU-152 was a monster made for a monstrous time, and in that sense, it did its job. But when we talk about weapons like this, we shouldn't only admire their size or their power. We should remember what they cost, not just in money, but in lives, in fear, what it meant to fire one of those massive shells into a city full of people.